I kept a warehouse hidden for 20 years, never showed it, never talked about it, never gave anyone the address. Not because I'm mysterious, but because I learned an expensive lesson. The fewer people know something, the less likely it is to be stolen. Last night, at 1:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a message, a camera alert. Motion detected at the warehouse door. I opened the feed. The screen was dark. Then a flashlight beam swept across the lock. A figure stood, pressed into the shadows, hood up, gloves on. He didn't look around like someone lost. He walked straight to the blind spot, straight to the main lock. I zoomed in. My heart dropped. My daughter's husband. I'd suspected he was greedy, but I never thought he'd be stupid enough to break into something I'd kept hidden for 2 decades and to do it right after a family dinner when he'd just smiled at me and called me Dad. He dropped to his knees, pulled out his tools, twisting, prying, working like someone who thinks he knows what he's doing. A curious man doesn't bring tools. A passerby doesn't wear gloves. And the scariest part wasn't the act. It was the timing. The exact night I was away. The exact night no one was home. That means he planned it. I didn't rush out to play hero. Heroes die first. I stayed still, recorded everything, and told myself one thing. You just proved you're not family. You're a hunter. That warehouse wasn't some movie-style secret stash full of gold and cash. It was my survival vault. 20 years of working, and I kept the things that would let me stand back up if life ever turned on me. Inside were equipment, valuable inventory, boxes of old contracts, and most importantly, property documents, a backup copy of my will, and a small safe holding things I would never keep at home. I don't need to be rich. I need to be secure. I never told my daughter. She's kind, and kindness is good, but too much of it makes you easy to lead. And her husband Kyle, ever since the wedding, he's had that too polite smell. The kind of man who always says the right lines. I just want stability. I care about the family. I'm under a lot of pressure. But his eyes? Always scanning. For opportunity, I gave him chances. Real ones. Advice. Work. A way to stand on his own. But the more I gave, the more he expected. A greedy man doesn't learn gratitude. He learns how to ask for more. That warehouse is the one thing in my life I never gave anyone access to. Not even my daughter. Not because I'm selfish. Because I know this. If Kyle knew, he'd call it shared assets. And the moment a greedy man calls your property family property, he's already planning to take it. I spent 20 years hiding that place from thieves on the street. Turns out, the real danger was sitting at my own dinner table. Strangers steal things. Family, if they're the wrong kind, steal control. And last night, Kyle didn't come for stuff. He came for something bigger. Control over my future. Looking back, all the signs were already there. I just chose to stay polite. A few months ago, Kyle started asking questions that sounded casual, but every one of them landed exactly where it shouldn't. Do you have any other storage units? Where do you keep your documents? If something happens, what are you leaving to your daughter? He smiled when he asked, but the questions didn't smile. One time he even said, I'm just worried you're getting older. What if you forget things? Sounds caring. It's not. It's pressure making you feel guilty for not sharing. I gave him vague answers. I've got it handled. And every time I said that, I caught that slight flicker in his eyes. Just for a second. That's what blocked ambition looks like. The worst was the day I left for a work trip. He got precise. How many days are you gone? What time will you be back? Where are you parking your car? Who's watching the house? My daughter laughed it off. He's just looking out for you. I didn't laugh. I could smell it. He was mapping time. A decent man asks to care. A calculating man asks to schedule. That night, before I left, he went out of his way to help, carried my suitcase, opened the car door, stood there watching me lock up longer than usual. But he wasn't watching me. He was watching patterns. Now I get it. He was marking, observing, waiting for the right moment. Break-ins are never impulsive. They're built on dozens of casual questions. And when a man calls you dad, but studies your assets like inventory, it's not a matter of if he acts, only when. I'll be straight with you, this part matters. But here's the hard truth. Politeness is expensive when the other person is calculating. And Kyle? He wasn't guessing anymore. He was preparing. The only mistake you made was assuming he'd wait longer. The camera recorded every minute clearly. Kyle arrived in a different car, parking some distance away, not right in front of the warehouse. He parked far enough to avoid industrial park cameras catching the license plate. Then he walked over, dressed in dark clothes, gloves, hat pulled low, a small flashlight. No one, just passing by, prepares like that. Zero. He stood in front of the warehouse door, without looking around. 0:15. He went straight down to the main lock. 0:30. He pulled out his tools, neatly like someone who had practiced before. He didn't try to call anyone. Didn't knock. He acted as if he had the right. That's what disgusted me the most. Not the greed, but the sense of, I deserve this. The most dangerous, greedy people are the ones who believe they're entitled to other people's property. He twisted the lock, tried a few times, failed, switched tools, tried prying. At that moment, I saw his face tighten, not the face of someone afraid, but the face of someone frustrated at being denied. And then he did something that proved this wasn't his first time breaking a lock. He didn't panic. He calmly changed angles, covered his hands, reduced the light. He had experience. I didn't move. I just recorded, because I knew if I called him out right then, he would run and spin a different story. But video doesn't tell stories. Video only exposes the truth. In the first 5 minutes, he was still alone. But the way he worked fast, steady, without hesitation told me one thing. This was just the opening move. When the lock wouldn't open, his next step would be to call in someone else. At exactly 5 minutes and 38 seconds, Kyle stopped. He pulled out his phone, turned his back to the camera, and made a quick call. Not a call to report anything. A call to bring in help. About 7 minutes later, a second figure appeared, hooded, gloved, carrying a long bag, the kind used for lock-breaking tools. They didn't greet each other like friends. They moved, like it was planned. One stood watch in the dark corner. One knelt down to work on the lock. That was the moment everything escalated, from a greedy son-in-law to a coordinated operation. And once it's organized, the goal is no longer curiosity, it's a successful break-in. The second man handed Kyle a longer tool. Kyle tried again. Failed. He tapped the lock lightly. Not hard, but enough to show frustration. I saw what I needed to see. Kyle wasn't doing this to check. He was doing it because he believed there was something inside that could change his life. He didn't quit when it got difficult. He just changed tactics. At minute 11, they started scanning around, identifying cameras. Kyle swept his flashlight across the wall corners, looking for blind spots. Lucky for me, my cameras weren't installed in obvious places. They were hidden in angles that are hard to predict, and they didn't have time to find them all. When you see a man willing to call in backup to break into your secret warehouse, you understand one thing clearly. If they had gotten in that night, they wouldn't have just taken things. They would have taken your sense of safety too. After failing at the main lock, they switched targets to the side door, the staff entrance. And this is where Kyle exposed himself. He knew the warehouse layout. A stranger would stay at the front and fumble around. Kyle went straight to the back like someone who had already scoped it out. He led the other man through the darker path, avoiding the streetlights. He stopped exactly at the side door, even bending down near the hinges like he'd looked at them before. I felt a chill run down my spine, because that meant Kyle hadn't just asked a few questions. He had studied the warehouse. He had watched it, maybe even been there before, maybe checked maps, maybe gotten information from someone. The second man started working on the side door. Stronger tools. I called security at the industrial park or the police, depending on the situation. I didn't say, my daughter's husband. I said exactly what mattered. There are intruders at my warehouse. I have camera footage. They're forcing the side door. In the next 2 minutes, they worked faster. No more careful. They were racing against time, and that tells you everything they knew. If they didn't get in quickly, they'd lose their chance. At 15 minutes and 40 seconds, the side door gave slightly a small gap. Kyle reached his hand inside. My chest tightened. 30 more seconds, and they would have been in. And then, from the distance, I heard it through the video, a siren. Faint, but enough to make them freeze. They looked at each other. Kyle hesitated for a split second, the moment where greed fights fear, and he chose to try again. Greedy men always try one more time. That's why they get caught. A lot of people would say, if it were me, I'd run out right away. No, running out is handing your life to someone with tools who's ready to take risks. I don't need to be a hero. I need to be the one who wins. I stayed still, saved all the footage, noted the timestamps, and kept my phone open to stay on the line with security, police. I needed them to arrive at the right moment to catch the act, not to show up and listen to my story. While waiting, I thought about my daughter. I knew if this exploded, she'd be dragged into it. Kyle would perform, claim I was controlling, accuse me of being selfish, turn himself into the victim. That's what people like him do best. Tell stories. But this time, I had something stronger than a story. The camera. The camera. The camera. The camera. On video, Kyle wasn't just breaking in. He coordinated with an accomplice. He went for the side door. He brought tools. He concealed himself. No story survives that kind of footage. I also understood. This wasn't petty greed. No one calls in backup and risks a break-in for a few boxes. Kyle believed there was something inside. He urgently needed documents, money, or something tied to assets. And here's the twist. My warehouse wasn't just storage. It held leverage. Whoever gets inside can touch things that decide the future. So when they were close to getting the door open, I wasn't afraid for the items. I was afraid of the consequences, because once they get their hands on it, they don't stop. Then I heard the patrol vehicle getting closer. The video trembled slightly from the sound. Kyle turned his head. The hunter had just heard the trap snap shut. As the sirens got closer, the second man signaled to pull out. But Kyle didn't leave right away. He bent down and tried again. That's the moment I knew for sure. Kyle wasn't there to check things out. He came for something specific. He reached into the gap of the side door, trying to hook the latch. The door gave a little more. He shoved his shoulder in, like he was trying to squeeze inside. The other guy grabbed his shirt, tugged lightly like, "Let's go." Kyle brushed him off. Greed makes people stupid. And the stupidest moment is when they're this close to getting what they want. Watching that, I suddenly understood. Kyle already knew this warehouse existed, and he believed there was a key inside that could change his life. Maybe property documents, a will, contracts, or some kind of leverage. He didn't want to wait another day. He wanted it before anyone could stop him. 18:5. The patrol car's lights swept across the wall. Kyle jerked upright. That's when he finally chose to run, but not clean. When people rush, they leave traces. He ran. The other guy followed. Kyle even turned back to look at the warehouse like regret, like resentment. That look told me everything. He'll come back if he gets another chance. And that's exactly why I can't let this slide. If I ignore it, next time he'll be smarter, more dangerous. Next time he won't bring some amateur partner, he'll bring professionals. That night, nothing was stolen from my warehouse. But I lost something else. My trust in the family my daughter built. As they ran, the cameras caught small but fatal details. A glove dropped near the side door, a metal tool falling out of a bag, and fresh pry marks on the hinges. Security. Police arrived just after they left, but it was enough to document the scene. The side door damaged, shoe prints, fingerprints on metal, and most importantly, I had video. I saved the footage in 2 places. Not because I'm paranoid, because I know Kyle will do anything to erase it. The next morning, I went home and sat down with coffee like nothing had happened. Right at 9 a.m., he texted, "Did you sleep well?" I got home a bit late last night. I gave a cold smile. He was probing, checking if I knew, if I'd react. He had no idea I'd seen everything. I replied with just one line, "Yeah, slept fine. That's it." Let him feel safe. In my head, the strategy was already set. No confrontation over the phone. I would face him directly with my daughter there, and the evidence ready. Because if I spoke to Kyle alone, he'd twist it. He'd go home and tell my daughter, "Your dad suspects me. Your dad is controlling. Your dad hates me." He'd turn me into the villain before I even had a chance to show the video. Manipulators always strike first with a story. So, I'll strike first, with proof. That night, I didn't lose my warehouse, but Kyle signed something much bigger himself. He proved he's not family, he's an intruder, and an intruder doesn't get to stay in the family. I invited my daughter and Kyle over for dinner. I didn't mention the warehouse. I just said, "I want to see you both." Kyle showed up, calm, still polite. "Dad, how are you? How's work lately?" He spoke as if last night had never happened. That's the kind of nerve you see in someone who thinks they haven't been caught. I looked straight at him. "Did you sleep well last night?" Kyle froze for a split second. Very small, but I caught it. He forced a smile. "Yeah. Pretty normal, Dad." My daughter looked at me, confused. I didn't rush. I let Kyle dig himself deeper. I asked again, "Did you go near the industrial warehouse area last night?" Kyle immediately shifted into defense. "What do you mean? Why would I go there?" I nodded. "Yeah. That's what I thought too." Then I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. Didn't play it yet. Just said calmly, "I have cameras at the warehouse." Kyle went stiff. My daughter turned to him. "You..." Kyle laughed. "What kind of joke is this?" I didn't. I pressed play. 5 seconds in, his face drained of color. He reached out, trying to grab the phone. I held it back. The video kept going. Him breaking the lock, calling someone, moving to the side door. My daughter stood frozen. Not shocked about the warehouse, but shocked about the man beside her. Kyle exploded. "You were spying on me? You set me up?" I answered coldly. "I didn't set you up. I recorded you setting yourself on fire." When Kyle realized he couldn't deny it anymore, he switched tactics. Blame. Why keep a warehouse secret? Who knows what's in there? I was just checking security. I let out a dry laugh. Checking security with tools? Checking security by calling backup? Kyle choked for a second. Then dropped the dirtiest line. "Why are you keeping all that anyway?" Sooner or later, it belongs to the family. There it was. The twist in one sentence. He didn't see the warehouse as mine. He saw it as future inheritance. And he wanted it early. My daughter's voice shook. "What are you even saying?" Kyle snapped at her. "You think we live on nothing? You think I don't have the right to know?" I looked at my daughter and said slowly, Do you see it now? He doesn't want to protect the family. He wants to own it. Kyle tried to recover. I just want stability for us. I cut him off. Stability isn't built by breaking locks at 2 a.m. Silence. My daughter started crying. Not because of the warehouse, but because she understood. The man she sleeps beside is someone who can turn on her the moment it benefits him. And I understood something too. This doesn't stop at the warehouse. This is a pattern. A type of person, when they see opportunity, they step over every line. If I let Kyle stay, he won't stop at the warehouse. He'll look at the will, the accounts, everything. And one day, he won't just come for assets. He'll turn my daughter into collateral in her own marriage. I asked Kyle a question that cornered him. What were you planning to find in the warehouse? Kyle stayed silent. I pressed. My will? Property records? Insurance papers? He licked his lips, then slipped. I just wanted to know what you're leaving behind. I nodded. Right. So, it wasn't security. It was your pocket. Dana, my lawyer, had told me beforehand. Ask the right question and let him expose his own motive. And Kyle just did. He was after documents. My daughter asked, have you ever gone through my dad's house before? Kyle snapped. What kind of stupid question is that? That response exposed something else. The way a man shows contempt for his wife when he's cornered. I said, you're coming home with me. For now. Kyle shouted, no, she's not going anywhere. I didn't argue. I just looked at him and said, take one more step, and I call the police. That video is enough for you to explain yourself to them. Kyle froze. He knew he'd lost because of the evidence. And that's when I understood clearly. That warehouse I kept hidden for 20 years didn't just protect my assets. It just saved my daughter from a man willing to break every boundary. That night, I did 3 things immediately. No, I'll deal with it tomorrow. First, I upgraded the warehouse, security changed the locks, added sensors, installed new camera angles, and alerted site security to increase patrols. Second, I moved all critical documents out of the warehouse to a safer place, bank safe deposit, with my lawyer. The warehouse now only holds things that can't be quickly handled. Third, I helped my daughter separate her finances. No one wants to believe their husband is a predator, but once you've seen him prying a door open, you don't get to stay optimistic. Kyle texted apologies, then begged, then threatened. If you leave, I don't care what he threatens. A man willing to break into your warehouse is willing to say anything to keep control. What gave me the most relief was when my daughter looked at me and said, Dad, I thought he was just under pressure. I answered, pressure doesn't make someone bring tools to break a door. She didn't cry anymore. She was exhausted. But at least she was awake. And I understood something clearly. Escalation doesn't just happen at a warehouse door. It happens inside a family if you don't stop it. A greedy man always escalates. Today it's a break-in. Tomorrow it's your accounts. And the day after, your entire life. I didn't hide that warehouse for 20 years to live mysteriously. I hid it to live safely. And I never imagined the person who'd force me to rely on that safety system would be my daughter's husband. That warehouse didn't cost me money. It cost me trust in someone I once called family. But it also gave me something. It exposed the hunter before he could bite deep. If it were you, would you forgive because of family? Or would you cut it off immediately because someone who breaks into your secret warehouse at 2 a.m. won't stop at one door? And the most important question, do you stay silent to keep the peace? Or do you choose evidence and boundaries to protect your child from a marriage with a greedy man? I choose boundaries because I've learned one thing. Real family doesn't need to break locks to get in.